My name's Dennis, and I'm here to introduce you to a 1965 Mustang that I've spent the last 4 years modifying and changing and attempting to make a tribute to the P-51 Mustang, which was a very successful aircraft in World War II. And so the connection here is I retired from the Air Force, so paying tribute to an airplane is not an odd thing for me to do, as well as the P-51 Mustang name is closely aligned with the Ford Mustang. And so here is my tribute. And to start with, I knew I wanted to have a very aerodynamic look. So I went ahead and chopped the top 3 inches. Now, if you know anything about chopping a top, you have to do a lot of modifications to get this top to fit so you can weld it back on. In this case, I cut the floor underneath the rear passenger's feet, and I reduced the length of the Mustang 5 3/4 inches. To make it fit, I also had to widen the top 2 inches. That allowed me to make a smooth transition here and here. The challenge was then to reduce the length of the door 5 3/4 inches. That was much more of a challenge. I had to cut the door into 12 pieces in order to weld it up and put it back together. The fact that it opens and closes effortlessly is clearly the result of a lot of work. The next thing I'd like to talk to you about is I looked at what the exhaust system or the exhaust pipes from a P-51 Mustang looked like, and I decided to go ahead and get some stainless steel pipes and bring the exhaust out thusly. There's 2 pipes, one on either side, that actually bring the exhaust. The rest of them are just there for looks. And you heard the noise. It's quieter than it was when it was open because I've placed a motorcycle baffle in each side to reduce the noise somewhat, because it can be a little bit loud out on the road. Next, I want to talk to you about front suspension. I wanted it low in the front to give it that aggressive look. The first thing I did is I did the Shelby drop, which brought it down 1 inch, but that was not enough. I came back and cut 2/3 of a coil off of each side, and that brought it down just like I wanted it. The front end alignment shop said it aligns perfectly, and I can also tell you from driving it around town, my tires do not hit the fender, which is also important to me. Next, I'd like to bring your attention to the front of the car. I didn't think that a tribute car needed a front bumper, so I replaced it with a fiberglass valance. The openings then had to be filled. I bought 3 1966 Mustang grills, modified each one so they filled the openings, and then took each one of the bars and covered it with a sort of a chrome item that you would place on the edge of your door to protect the edge of your door. And that's a one of a kind. You won't see that anywhere else. Next, I'd like to bring your attention to this item that extends from the hood. Gives a little bit of an aggressive look, but it does not detract from the drivability, because everything from here up is not real. It's for looks only. Although it fools most people. There's a stock 302 engine directly underneath of this, as well as a C4 transmission, which will give you plenty of reliability. It starts, it runs, it does well with regard to drivability. Next, while we're here, we'll talk about the windows. I went to every glass shop in town, asked them to make glass for this car, and nobody was able to do so. So I went ahead and purchased plexiglass, and I have put plexiglass in the front and rear, and it also serves its purpose well. Okay, next I'm going to bring your attention to the interior. As you can see, there isn't enough room for that back seat. There wasn't much room before, so I went ahead and made a bulkhead so you can place items inside the bulkhead if you so desire. The battery is there in the battery box for weight distribution. It's a 4-point harness if you feel that you're going to be driving in a exuberant manner. Aluminum seats sit well. You don't want to spend all day in them, but they sit fine for cruises and for parades and for things of that nature. Now we're looking at the dash. I knew that an aircraft needed to have plenty of gauges and plenty of switches, and that's what it does. 2 of these gauges work and a couple of the switches work, but most of them are for looks. Look over to joystick. That's your shifter, and that handle for the shifter is what you would see in a real P-51 Mustang. I had a machine shop modify the trigger, so you have to pull the trigger in order to move from reverse to neutral to drive. And then I also had a machine shop build some inner panels for this, staying with the P-51 Mustang. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put in the side window. And we're going to talk about why I'm getting rid of this vehicle that I put so much work into. And the simple fact is that with any collector car or truck, you never actually get done with it. None of them are ever done. The only way to stop working on them is to sell them. After all this time and effort, it's time for me to sell this. So I've gone ahead and I've put my telephone number and my name on here. Call me if you're interested. I probably won't answer your telephone call because I don't like the robocalls and the sales calls, and I don't need any help selling this. But if you're interested, call me, leave me a text, leave me a voicemail, and that would be fine. Now let's talk about what it's not, because I've spent a lot of time talking about what it is. It does not have windshield wipers. I didn't think an airplane needed windshield wipers. The heater box is under the dash, but I never planned on driving in a cold weather, so the heater is not hooked up. Other shortcomings, I did not have access to a paint booth, so I have a few blemishes in the paint, but they're not easy to see. I've still got a few leaks in the drivetrain, a little oil leak here, a little transmission leak there, but nothing serious. This is a perfect car if you're interested for short cruises. It would handle a parade pretty well. It does very, very well at car shows, especially if you have a modified class. This is about as modified as any streetable vehicle is, short of a race car. So if this is what you're looking for, something that draws a lot of attention, gets a lot of thumbs up in traffic, and every time you stop for gas, if there's a car guy within 100 yards, he's going to show up and start talking to you, and he's going to ask you questions, and he's going to admire all the effort and all the work. This concludes my monologue. Thank you for having the patience to listen. I hope that you have a blessed day. Thank you.